This is the time of year that can be confusing to some folks. Well, let's find out if it's confusing to any of the folks in this room next on Table Talk. And we're back. Hey, welcome to Table Talk. Hey, welcome to Nick and Sarah. Good to see y'all.
Nice to see
you.
So I wasn't with you last time, right?
No.
All right.
We had a few in a row. Just me and Sarah hanging 2 in a row.
Yeah, 2 in a row.
Yeah.
I did think it's hilarious that you threw the podcast about money to the 2 youngest people on staff.
That was all right.
We have a different perspective.
It's called aspirational. It's aspirational.
Yes.
So we took off, by the way, for a week because we want people to listen to the Wild Faith Conference. And so I believe our 2 tech people in our room have said that that's ready to go and is available on the podcast and on YouTube, correct? On our YouTube channel, which is at Cov Dothan, right? Isn't that the easiest way to find our YouTube channel is at Cov Dothan? So
I'll say that. I don't know how it's filed on there. It is 4 sessions. I know it's the Sunday sermon.
Yes.
Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. Somebody was texting me. Is like, they keep talking about Sunday night being the second session, and I can't figure it out. And then I got a text like, oh, with like a bunch of H's on it. It's like, oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah. And the reason I mentioned Wild Faith Conference, because technically that was the first weekend of Lent that with a season in, but we really didn't recognize it. We mentioned it at our first service that morning, and we mentioned it again this past Sunday. But we want to talk a little bit more about Lent, because Ash Wednesday, a number of our people showed up. Y'all participated in putting the ashes on the heads or hands of people. But outside of Ash Wednesday and outside of going, oh, we have this thing called Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter coming up at the end. What is this whole season of Lent? So here's my question to y'all, because when I was growing up, and I was growing up in I remember the early 70s and through the early 80s was my years. My little Methodist church, I don't remember anything about Lent. I mean, when I got into Lent was actually when I started working at a church, and that church was in Kentucky in 1988 was the first Lent, quote unquote, that I went through. So I got a long history, but my early history was not. You can remember your early history because you're both like 15 years old or something. So,
Excuse you.
You are both under 30. All right. So I will say that.
Yeah.
So we'll start out with the youngest person here, which is Sarah or Siri, depending on whoever's talking to her. So Siri, what do you think about what was Lent? Did you have Lent growing up?
My findings show. Anyways, yes, I did participate in Lent growing up. I did grow up in a very traditional Methodist church, and I would pick out what I would want to give up every year. And so I knew that aspect of like Lent, but no, like in the aspect of history of the meaning behind it. All I knew is that like, oh, we wave palm branches on Palm Sunday, and we take the ashes from the burned palm branches from the year before. But other than that, I just knew to give something up to go closer to God. And a lot of times it was like, okay, I give up chocolate, or I give up caffeine, or I give up whatever suited me that year. But
so that's a big thing that stuck out.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about 15, 20 years ago, right? No, 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago.
10,
right?
No, like 5 years ago.
Oh. So you don't remember much before that?
No,
At your
not
church?
until youth. So,
Okay.
But yeah, because the children didn't really participate besides Palm Sunday and, getting ashes on your forehead. But yeah, so just a little bit about giving up, but nothing deeper than that for me. So,
And nothing, no reason of why to give up except get closer to God.
Pretty much.
Basically some generic thing.
mhm.
Really what I heard.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you had some super spiritual person telling you, if you do this, Sarah, you and Jesus will be so close, it'll blow your mind. Right?
Yeah, none of that.
Yeah. All right. So my Southern Baptist grown up guy over here, I'm saying zero Lent.
Past tense.
I know.
Thank you very much.
I said growing up. Southern Baptist grown up kid.
Yeah.
So
We had a similar conversation coming up into Christmas.
Yeah.
With
the Advent.
Advent, where Yeah, there is a quote unquote Easter season, especially in most bigger churches that have like marketed, like a marketing team or PR team or whatever, where it's like, yes, there's events and stuff. I really didn't get any kind of real Lent quote unquote stuff until I started working here. Because I went straight from the SBC context. And when I was in seminary in Louisville, I mean, the biggest Lent thing I did was my Chick-fil-A for some reason sold a fish sandwich during Lent. And it was annoying because we gave up one of our fryers. So the entire restaurant just got worse for 40 days.
So Chick-fil-A gave up a fryer for Lent.
Yeah, it was bad.
Technically, huh? Okay.
Yeah, it was only 2 fish sticks on a sandwich. What's the fish sandwich? Because they couldn't do like a fish fillet and fish sticks.
Yeah.
So they had to do fish sticks. But I say it was bad. I mean, yeah, there was talk about like quote unquote giving something up for Lent, right? But I was
that in your church or just friend?
I mean, I
group?
went to a Baptist K through 12 school, but you have a lot of Catholic friends. We had some Episcopalian friends. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I taught at Providence, I had Catholic kids that went to Providence. Like,
Right.
Christian schools, you just get a bunch of different traditions where it always struck me as a Catholic thing. Like, oh, they give up meat. Some people talk about giving up social media or something, but I didn't really take that seriously because I was like, that's fasting is food. Now I've come to a different understanding of like, oh, this is 40 days of self-denial reflecting Jesus, actually Moses and Elijah too, who each had these periods of spiritual preparation and again self-denial leading up to these big moments in faith history, right? So I've actually come to a really deep appreciation for it, and just in terms of like, oh, it is a gift. I receive it as a gift from God for like, oh, it's a way of orienting life around the cross and around the empty grave, where it's like, it's not just, oh, Easter was cool. Some more people came to church, I guess. Cooler music. Like, there really was a sense of weight.
Yeah.
It has given a sense of weight to observing Easter that I have not experienced previously.
So the whole giving up thing, if you had to guess without looking at the notes, where did the giving up thing actually start? You have any idea?
You mean the transition between like the traditional fasting that they would do and giving up now? Or
Which is what you just said. That's it.
Yes,
That's it.
okay.
That's where it started.
yes.
So the giving up stuff started with the
Yes, fast.
fasting.
And I'm cheating because we actually had a very similar conversation about a year ago when we were we'd covered Lent previously in different ways, different nuances, whatever. But I think
Nobody remembers that conversation.
No, not at all. But what I'm saying
It
there,
wasn't here, so we get
Alan remembers. Yeah, waved at me.
yeah.
You can't see Alan on the camera shot, but he's back there doing the Kermit the Frog waving arms.
Yeah.
Straight. So I'm cheating and saying it was like 2nd century. It's like the 100s. You had churches systemically fasting to prepare for Easter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the notes we got, and there's a friend of mine has done some church history, a lot of church history work, but your idea or your thought about being particularly a Roman Catholic thing was really where it started.
Because the Roman Catholic Church was the church. For
The
a
all
very
very
long
church.
time.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that didn't start until after Constantine, when he became a Christian, professed Christ. He was Roman emperor, right? Yeah, he was Roman emperor, and around the 4th century, and so he made the Roman Catholic, basically the Roman Catholic faith was everybody had to do it. That was the deal. I mean, it's good to be king, and it's good to tell everybody else what to do. That's what he did.
Yeah.
Basically, and so that legalized Christianity. And then they had, and this I think this went on for many, many, many years, where there was a preparation to join the church, and everybody joined on Easter, whatever that is. Baptisms happened on Easter, basically, is what they did. But they also used that 40-day preparation. So it in essence, it did come from our Roman Catholic brothers and sisters for that. And then you've already mentioned the 40 days. That the 40 days is just there. Now, if people are smart, and some people are, we go, Ash Wednesday happened on this day, and then Easter happened here. There's more than 40 days.
There is.
Why is that, Sarah?
Because they do not count Sundays.
Why don't we count Sundays?
That was a feasting day because when they would traditionally fast, then they would feast on Sundays. And so there's actually 46 days, counting from Ash Wednesday all the way up until Easter this year.
I didn't know that. We haven't talked about that before.
Yeah. So technically, if you're quote unquote fasting chocolate, you can eat on Sunday, right? Can't you eat?
Technically, yeah, I did do that growing up. But now it's more of like, I don't want to do that because I'm not fasting everything. So I can power through.
Yeah.
But also it breaks you from the cycle. And so anyways, personal thing. But
So you mentioned Elijah's 40 days and Moses' 40 days.
Yeah,
Or-
I did that without looking at the notes.
Okay, all right. But there was a couple other 40 days, right?
Well, Jesus is, right? In Matthew 4. And then Israel's 40 years. The 40 is a big number. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like I remembered something somewhere where 40 days without food is pretty much the furthest the human body can physically go, or something like that. I remember seeing something. I'll do some Googling while.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's been a lot of there's been some prisoner fasts that have gone pretty long. They go a long time. And I think it's pretty well up there. I've never tried it before. Have you tried a 40-day fast before? From every food?
no, that's true reliance on the Lord that if he doesn't specifically tell me, I don't know.
Well, and it's not one. Hey, listener, don't try to don't go without food for 40 days.
Yes.
Though I will say, humans can generally survive without food for about 2 months. The absolute medically supervised record is 382 days, observed in 1966.
But they were drinking water. They weren't just, they
Yep.
were still drinking water.
Surviving on tea, coffee, water, and sodas.
Okay, so they had like sugar
Sure.
and bean.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is in the 60s.
If they had sodas, yeah, they would have some sugars in there,
But no matter how you slice it, there's some sort of
or not have it at all.
and
Can't slice nothing. I'm just kidding.
for all the only listeners, I just stuck my tongue out at our pastor. There's some version of like, yes, it's physically possible, but nobody's having a good time doing that. So the typical understanding is there's something happening there of Jesus empowering those, or God empowering those moments, right? Which isn't far off from fasting's a hard thing. It's a willpower thing. That's not a thing it's got to be a Jesus empowering thing no matter what. But but that number 40 typically shows up in these moments of testing, purification, preparation. 40 years, 40 days. It's typically that's the number assigned to some kind of build up to a big thing that God's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And is it my imagination, or do I remember, is there a verse in Jesus' temptations that mentions he went without food and water? Don't remember that correctly. For some reason, it pops up that one of the translations said that he went in the wilderness for the temptation, but he had no food or water. And I don't know why I remember thinking that.
Well, let's
So,
find out, and feel free to continue the conversation while I research.
so did you find the answer, or is he?
Oh, no, he's looking it up.
Okay.
But I do know that's the scriptures that I use when I explain fasting to those who've never done it before, because we talk about fasting chocolate, but I like to say that's more of a sacrifice, because fasting biblically would only mean food. And so people use social media fast and they do that, and it's just a stretch a little bit. And so I like to say that as a sacrifice. You're sacrificing this for the Lord. It's still very good, but biblically it was only food.
That's correct.
So
Yeah, because the sustenance that you're needing, you're looking to God, and that was the whole purpose of the original Lent, was you're inwardly focused, but focusing on your relationship with Jesus. A lot of self-examination, and also in the early church, I think, wanted to identify with Christ's suffering that he went through as well. So most of the mainline denominations are, on some extent, recognize this. A lot of our non-denominational friends or more charismatic friends, I'm not sure they even mention Lent.
they don't,
So
from my knowledge.
and some have come back on the Good Friday train. I think that we hear more of that from folks as well.
Which is weird because Pentecostalism came from the Holiness movement, when it came from the Wesleyan movement. And so they came from us. They came from the Wesleyan movement, but so they just don't focus on the traditional aspect of it anymore, which if you're doing it the wrong way, I totally get. But there is good intentions behind the traditions if you were to view it in that way. And so I know a lot of my Pentecostal friends, they will practice Lent because they've learned about it from the more traditional Catholic and Methodist routes and other routes with that. But they don't go to an Ash Wednesday service because their church doesn't do it. They just choose to do Lent on their own.
Yep.
But
which fasting is, I mean, objectively, it's easier if you have people doing it together. There's an accountability. There's a I'm not alone thing. Objectively, it is a thing that is about inward internal experience, right? So it lends itself to individual. I mean, Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, when ye fast, go get up and get ready for the day like you would, like put oil on, do all the things you would normally do so nobody else knows you're doing it. Basically, don't fast and look like a wretch for credit. Right?
Yeah.
So I get that. I get the impulse to, okay, this is a thing that is central to my preparation for me. Like, what does God want to sharpen me in as we prepare for this coming up day? I mean, I think it makes sense. And this is not today's conversation, but we can talk about why there's kind of a pendulum effects between that like very experiential in the moment kind of Christianity and very like structured liturgical, right? And I think they can meet in the middle, but typically when a movement will swing too far one direction, people will overcorrect the other way.
yeah.
Whether it's, I mean, I know, I truthfully believe this is why the people hold the theological stance that God doesn't do miracles anymore, because it's a lot of people, at least in my experience, who got burned by churches where that was abused. And like, well, that's not right.
Yeah.
Or skeptical of church calendar stuff because it's too legalistic or whatever, or what have you. I think a lot of people get, in my opinion, I think a lot of folks get skeptical of how the church they grew up in does things, and they wind up correcting the other way and overcorrecting the other way. This is just, the Lent stuff's beautiful. That's all I'll say.
So, and then y'all both have been and are currently connected on deeper levels with a number of people, right? Sarah, with a number of the people in Chi Alpha, Nick, some of the men that you're connecting with on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion? And I think, Sarah, you talk to your friends. We'll start with you. Has there been a desire for the giving up food fasting thing, or is it more like giving up chocolate type thing? Is there a desire for people to experience this literal fast of food in some of the friends that you're connecting with?
I haven't seen much of the fasting of food or any of the desire for that, honestly. I think because most of my friends grew up in denominations that never did Lent growing up, they're just now learning about it in college. And so they're taking more of the first approach of giving up chocolate or caffeine or things like that. But I'm very honored that they wanted to research and they want to participate in it, even though like a lot of their friends aren't doing it, or it's very specific to our Chi Alpha group. But it's cool to see them go back to the tradition and see the original roots and not see it as something that's legalistic.
Yeah.
But
Any of the guys that you come across with, because you have some seasoned veterans, and you have some other people that are just to get started on this journey. Talked to a man last night that is loving the men's stuff he's getting into, and they said it's just from the last year he's been involved in the last year and stuff. He basically said, he didn't put it in these words, but basically said he was just going through motions. Type thing up until his involvement with some of the men's stuff we got going on.
Yeah, that's a story that I've heard a few times, because a lot of what, I'm going to get to your question in a second, a lot of what lies at the core of what like me and my team have been assigned to do by you and Bobby is that meet men where they are, love them as well as we can, and challenge them to go deeper, however Jesus wants them to. And a lot of times in that journey, guys wind up wrestling with like, oh, hey, the motivations for why they've been doing what they've been doing, right? So towards that end, to your original question, I don't know that I've had a lot of conversations about guys saying, yes, I want to do this fasting thing, right? But I think I may have heard a shade of this in what you've said. Maybe not, Sarah, I'm sorry if not. But I think there's some form of like, I know a lot of the guys in my spheres are kind of in a process of like reevaluating why they're doing the Jesus stuff they're doing. And so a lot of the conversation leans more toward like, hey, how are you experiencing Jesus right now? And trying to move into that, like, in some cases, like not work-based thing. So I don't know. I think some guys are just not in the exact place to really engage with this aspect of things right now, where rather than doing more, they're more focused on like, what have I been doing and what are the things that I need to not, because I've been doing it for the wrong reasons, right? I will say the guys who I've encountered and who I know who are really like those sage figures, I don't know, I haven't talked to them about Lent, but I know that they employ fasting as a spiritual discipline, especially because a lot of times in the scriptures you see fasting done instead of like actively, it's as a response. Like, this is happening, Jesus, we are fasting as we're praying into this thing for the salvation of a certain person, for Jesus, we don't know what's happening here, for wisdom or guidance, morning, whatever. What I have seen has been more in that responsive form of fasting, more than the like Lent style.
I agree with that.
Where, and I think both are fully valid scripturally, right? But I'm thinking, I don't know.
What's the we're going, this is not a teaser or anything. I'm just letting people know. I know when in August, when we start talking about John Comer's book, we're going to be going to, and that's going to come out, right? We got 8 weeks. We got 8 weeks of the spiritual disciplines, and so
Practicing the way.
practicing.
I thought that's what you were alluding to.
Yeah. Practicing the way. We're going to be getting into that as a church. We're going to be pushing it out. Like, this is what. Yeah. Here's the.
By the way, he's the one guy who I've heard make the explicit argument fasting has to be a food thing.
Yeah.
Other kind of self-denial is a different thing.
To sacrifice what she was.
Sorry, but
Yeah. So the question is that I think all three of us grew up in a church that didn't talk about it. Didn't talk about Lent. Didn't talk about fasting. Right.
No, fasting was not even a word I knew
Yeah.
until college, really.
Right. So what's what do you think our hangups are? I can't remember the word, how to pronounce that.
What are the hangups?
What are the hang-ups that are stopping people from fasting? Okay, the first one it's uncomfortable. Because we're a country of means and excess.
Mm-hmm.
We have excess of everything. In this room, we have excess of lights. Juan has set up with lights. We got tons of lights. Yeah. We just came from a lunch together.
We did.
We had almost as much food left over as we ate. Thanks to Olive Garden and Chris Golden. Thank you very much. This is a shout out. Yes. Used a free promo for Olive Garden, which is great. Loved it. There's a discomfort, I know, but is there any other reasons why people have a hesitation for fasting? And I'll be the first to go, because there are seasons I've gone through where I'll do, okay, I'm going to try Monday. Monday.
Like a weekly thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Every Monday, do the only liquids type thing. I don't do full fast. When I do the fast, I mean, I think technically somebody will say just water only type thing.
That's usually, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I tend to get juice or Propel, something with electrolytes in it.
Yeah.
So not sure that's cheating or not. I'm just telling you because it's uncomfortable for me.
Between you and God.
Yeah. And so there's I've heard some people will press back and say, I can't because of blood sugar or whatever. I'm not going to argue with that. I want to say, well, if you're doing this for God, will God take care of that? But but there's a risk, right? There's a medical risk. Anyway, so any other pushbacks that you can think of that either you have personally or you've heard about people that just don't want to do it?
I can think of a few.
Yeah.
So, we talk about, we just got done with Wild Faith Conference, and something that kept running through my mind is counting the cost of discipleship. And so a lot of people don't want to put in that much self-denial to go into fasting. They just want to, I don't want to use the stereotypical term, but like lukewarm. It's like, yeah, I'll do my devotional every day. I'll pray, all the things. But when it comes to that, that's hard. And so like really counting the cost of like, how much do you rely on the Lord? Because it is a test of your own ability of how much do you rely. And give us this day our daily bread is not talking about, it's talking about like him giving us the provision that we need. And so it can become like, okay, Jesus, like I really need you right now. And so I'm going to show how much that I need you, but also I'm going to rely fully on you. And I'm going to trust in you that, you're going to speak to me, and you're going to make your presence known. That as well as, people have health problems. And so I always say, like in my small group, when we talk about fasting, like if you have a medical problem, talk to your physician before you consider like fasting, because yes, God will provide, but also he gave us a brain to think. And so a lot of times, like we have to be careful. It's like if someone really has a medical condition, we need to take that into account before we just say, hey, go fast, But there's a lot to that.
You know how many medical procedures actually tell you to fast?
That's true. Before.
Almost every medical procedure, blood work or anything like that. Before you're minimal fasting 6 hours, nothing after midnight or something, and you have a procedure at 6, 7, 8 o'clock the next morning. There's at least 8 hours that people have to fast. And I've been one of those guys that said, well, I can't eat after midnight, so set my alarm at 11:55. Anyway, you get something to eat.
Kyle, I got a few thoughts in that vein. The first one that teed up my mind before Sarah was talking is one, like when I was in student ministry, I felt this fear of, what if I talk about fasting and this lands in the ears of a kid with an eating disorder and it goes the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't that far off actually from there are disclaimers that need to go on there and ways of explaining it. Like, hey, this is a thing for your health. This should not be a thing that the enemy uses to harm you.
Yeah.
Right. The second thing that comes to mind is Sarah, again, I heard a stream of this in what you just said in the, oh, that's too much. At least for guys, I think that there is a thing of like, do I have what it takes question in the terms of, at least what I've experienced, can I go and not eat and not just like be a major jerk? Right.
Oh yeah.
Or can I go and can I fast and still do the job that I need to do on a daily basis?
Yeah.
I remember having to do a fast for a class in seminary, and I was like, I need to go do like a 11-hour shift at a Chick-fil-A. What is that? And so it's that weird balance between like, do I genuinely trust that Jesus can come through and that if he's asking me to do it, he's not shocked by what it's going to take, but also there's living wisely, right? The last thing, and I don't want this to take up too much time in the conversation, I think that the people in the church have a really twisted view on self-denial and suffering.
Yeah.
Which, again, you were talking about, but I don't think they understand. I think and again, there's a difference between head belief and gut level belief, right? I think a lot of people have their theology of suffering, quote unquote, pretty good, but they believe that like, oh, is suffering down in my bones, in my gut? Do I believe that suffering and self-denial are actually a massive piece of how Jesus is forming me and wants to make me like himself? Because we can go however long you want on this, but like Jesus didn't have to go fast for 40 days. He didn't have to be tortured and crucified. He could have just been crucified. Like Jesus as our model, part of walking the path that he walked was being willing to suffer, believing that God was going to bring help, life, response, whatever in the meantime. And this is actually going to come up in pastor study tomorrow night. This comes out on Thursday. So I guess last, whatever, where Jesus being willing to trust even on the cross that God's going to come through for me, even if it takes me being in a grave for 3 days. Like, there is a version of thinking about suffering where, okay, this is my opportunity to really put my feet to the fire in terms of, do I trust that what God asks of me, he will provide for, and that he knows the better way? And I'm preaching genuinely to myself here. It's like, okay, do I believe that if Jesus assigns me to say, you are fasting for this reason on this random Wednesday, that he has a version of that Wednesday where that is a thing that's possible? I think it's in these moments of self-denial and suffering that we actually have to process through, do we believe what we say we believe about him being our master, not only our savior, but also our master and our model too?
Yep. And I think, this is the last comment I'll make about this, and we'll close up. I think this is just experiential, not gospel truth or anything. I think it takes repeated attempts to get it right.
Agreed.
And I'll say this for a reason, because there's when I go for a while and go, okay, I'm gonna restart. I'm gonna start on Mondays is usually the day that I would choose to do this. And the issue that I kept butting up across was the I forgot the other word I'm looking for, but I was so focused on what I couldn't have.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I get to the 11 o'clock window or 11:30 window and go, oh, it's lunchtime. I can't have anything. And I get focused on that, and I'm in an obsession of what I couldn't have,
Right.
rather than what's the whole purpose? Literally, I think the whole purpose is the time that you would have spent eating, you need to be doing something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Praying.
So, yeah.
Again, the old idea, like
Praying,
really your shoe,
yeah.
so that when it stabs your heel, you're like, oh, there's a reason that pebble's there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that's one of the struggles that I have, because I get obsessed because I'm not eating, and then obsessed about, okay, what time is it? All right.
Because you do take the time. You take the time out of your day not to eat, but to spend time with God and to go off to a closed room if you need to. And like that's what fasting and praying should be the same word at this point. Is like, if you're going to fast, you're going to pray.
Yep.
But
And of course, my issue normally, unless I'm going to lunch with people or something, I eat 5 minutes. But yeah, I grab something in 5 minutes, so it's not like I'm replacing a 30-minute window.
Yeah.
And so that also plays into it. So, all right, let's turn this back to Lent. We'll end up where we started from. So if you had to encourage somebody, we're already 2 weeks in to Lent. And let's just say, all right, they're not ready for fasting yet. What would you suggest to somebody, one or two ways that they could start to observe Lent if they have not already?
I think, I know I sound like a broken record, but prayer is so important. And so like praying to God first and asking him the simple question of, what are you reliant on? And how can I take that away this season to be more reliant on God? And so what is something that you turn to every day that might take a lot of your time, or your mind goes to throughout the day? Is like, how can I wing that off, take that away for the 46 days or the 40 days if you want to take off Sundays, to rely more on God for this season? Because it is going to be a challenge, but it's a good challenge, and it's something that we should, praise God for in a way, but also, like Nick will be saying in the next few weeks, prayer can sound like lamenting sometimes, just being in constant communication with God. So
there's I believe Soren Kierkegaard, old dead Danish guy, with this really striking quote that I'm going to butcher, but the long story short is that one of the most heroic things a human being can do is to simply exist in front of God as you truly are. Where in the terms of so many of the things that we rely on, we run to escape, to not have to deal with what we're dealing with, to not have to deal with what we're feeling, to just check out. It is actually a very courageous thing to simply authentically be in front of God and say, you know what, I spent a lot of time playing this game on my phone because I don't want to deal with that thing. Jesus, if you want to go there, I'm willing to go there. Where it's less about did I fast or not, or am I trying to do this or not, but it's more about, okay, through these tools, God, through these things that you put in front of me, what are you trying to pull out and reveal in me that you want to get to? Because the goal isn't to say that we fasted and gave up something for Lent. Because then if we wear that like a badge on our, there's a lot of Bible that says, well, that's a bad idea. To then say, I feel pretty good about the fact that I did my 40 days of Lent fasting. It's not me. That's not about Jesus. You have gifted me with this opportunity to really have some parts of myself I don't pay a lot of attention to pulled out so that we can do some business on those. And in that sense, yes, a lot of Lent is about subtraction, but Bobby talked about this Ash Wednesday. Some of it may be about addition. And you talked about that, where it's not just about not eating, it's about what are you replacing it with? And Comer talks about this, where there are things that are about doing less of something. It could be, hey, I need to add this other source of spiritual nourishment in as well. But I don't want us to lose sight of the fact it's not about this layer that we're talking about of the thing we're doing spiritually. It's all for a different and on a deeper level, where Jesus is in pursuit of more of you. And if we're going to ask this question, I'm like, all right, why are we preparing for Easter? So that when we get to Easter, we can worship him with all that we have on a deeper level and offer him the praise and love and recognition that he deserves and celebrate that. Yeah, it's going to be hard, but if we can show up as better worshipers for it, that may be worth it.
All right. By the time this podcast dropped, you will have done 2 weeks in the Psalms.
2 weeks
on the Psalms.
Yeah, seeing how Psalms and Holy Week collided. Sarah's got week 3,
which will be the Wednesday after this podcast drops.
Yeah.
Correct. And then
do we live stream those, record those?
No.
So you got to come in person.
You do.
You got to come in person on Wednesday night. And if you don't want to eat, that's okay. Come about 6 o'clock, I think, is what time we sort of kick that off in the fellowship hall.
Yep.
So some Psalms and how they relate to Holy Week is what y'all guys are doing, right?
Yeah.
For me, Psalm, how did Jesus wrestle with that Psalm? Or how do we see that come through in Holy Week somehow? And it at least is some cool stuff. Okay. But I'm excited to hear what Sarah's got cooking there. We talked a lot about it.
Have you finished what you're doing yet?
Mostly. I want to add a few more things in there and hear Nick a few more times to figure out.
Well, you got one.
Yes.
You got tomorrow night.
Yes.
Psalm what? What's your focus?
22. Psalm 22 is my focus. So.
Which part? Beginning or the end of it?
Middle? Question mark?
Okay.
I'd have to
We'll
put
talk.
it up again.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, Psalm 22 is the one right before Psalm 23. If I remember right. So everybody knows where Psalm 23 is. All you got to do is go right before it.
That shouldn't have been as funny.
It's Psalm 22. So thank you, Sarah. Look forward if y'all were out on that Wednesday night. Do we know the date? Do we know?
Tomorrow is March the 4th.
No, March 11th is when Sarah will drop after this. Well, she'll not drop. I mean, it drops. And then March 11th, Wednesday night.
Maybe she's fasting that day.
Yeah, make a reservation or just come at 6 o'clock, Fellowship Hall. We'd love to see y'all. Thank y'all again for sharing your time. Appreciate your day. For those who are watching, sorry for what we said that you didn't agree with. No, I'm not actually. Not sorry for that. I'm sorry for the way we look. We didn't dress up for you today, did we? So we're all just we're pretty casual.
Come as you are.
Yes. So thank you all for watching, those who are listening. And remember, this is Table, and we're talking at the table next time. Bye-bye.